Happy Thanksgiving week. This one's going to be a kind of shorter one because I have Thanksgiving things to get ready. Um, and I hope that you will join me tomorrow. One thing I want to mention for Happy Thoughts tomorrow, because I have an announcement that I'm going to make that I'm pretty excited about, especially if you've been following my journey on the Happy Thoughts show, kind of all I've been through in the last year. I have like a fun announcement that I'm going to share tomorrow. So I would love for you to join me. Otherwise, going to keep this one pretty short, but so good and so important. So let's dive in. So the biggest thing that most solopreneurs are getting wrong and how to solve it to make way more money now. I can't even remember my own title. I've coached so many solopreneurs over the last 3 years in business. And this mistake that I'm about to talk about today is one that I see almost everyone make. And it's a really big one. And I feel like it's one that also never gets talked about in our industry. And so it's funny because I was talking to a client about this the other day, and I don't know, it's maybe like the fourth client I've talked about this with in the last month. And I was like, why is this conversation not happening? Because all my clients, when I talk to them about it, are like, oh my God, that's such a good point. I never thought about it like that. So today, that's what we're diving into. Again, something that never really gets talked about enough, but is so, so crucial. And you guys know I'm so bad at doing the spoiler thing, so I just always tell you right away. But it is not being adaptable in your business while staying focused. And I'm going to add a ton of context to that, but the adaptability part is what's so huge there, not being super adaptable in your business. So we'll get back to the focus part in a minute, but what I see a lot of solopreneurs do is they endeavor to run their business as though it was a very large business, right? So we see large successful businesses doing 18-month plans and a ton of goal setting and getting really specific and knowing exactly what they're doing in Q1 through 4 of next year and all this kind of stuff. And we think that the right way to run a business is to do that, right? So many of you are probably already starting to think about 2019, you're already feeling gosh, I need to get my quarter straight. I need to really lock it in. I need to write my plan. I need to figure out what I'm doing. And listen, there's a time for that in the growth of your business, right? I feel like I am much more planned out for next year than I have ever been. And I'm still not that rigid, honestly. And I think that it has served me so, so well in my business. So if you're listening, have you ever felt that way or done that? Or if you're watching the replay, felt if I'm going to succeed in business, I need to look like those businesses, right? I need to look like I have even a year plan, a 6-month plan, an 18-month plan. I need to have all this figured out. I need to have it planned out. I need to have it laid out by quarter, right? We all do that to ourselves. Again, so been there. So let me know if you've done that to yourself. I have to have the plan. I am doing my best when it looks like I'm operating a big business, right? And what I want to say is that is just absolutely not true at all. And what I am not, saying you don't need goals or a plan, and we'll talk about a little bit of that. But what I'm saying is that your win as a small business is that you can adapt like this, right? You can adapt so quickly. Big businesses absolutely have to have these, 18-month plans, because turning that is like turning the Titanic, right? It's super difficult. We're talking hundreds of people, they absolutely require a big plan. So we see that and we think that that's what is required to have a successful business. It's actually not. Most big businesses would kill to have the adaptability that we have, and we squander it away. We're like, oh, where's my Q4 plan? No. Your absolute biggest asset as a solopreneur is how quickly you can make a shift, how quickly you can change, how quickly you can adapt. Your adaptability is so, so valuable, right? Alicia says plan seeker right here. Totally, because we think that will get me the thing I want, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Inherently, it's what we're kind of all trained to look at. I would say, even coming from business school, that, was a lot of the stuff that was pushed in, but we were learning about running big businesses. We are not that. Our absolute biggest asset is the fact that we could change everything tomorrow. So if you watched my live stream last week, I talked about how funnels are changing and why they don't work in the traditional way that they used to. Cool. So then what? If you had it planned out that all of 2018 was about this specific funnel and it had to look this way and the plan was this, and then things start to shift, guess what? You're screwed. Right? And you're feeling like the plan's not working, all this stuff's happening, but you're like trying to stay committed to the plan because you made the plan. And this is when most small business owners and solopreneurs like really get themselves into a pickle, is because they've made this arbitrary plan, which I want to mention that too. A lot of the times they're pretty arbitrary. They're not based on actual data. I'll talk about that in a minute. And we're trying so damn hard to stick to the plan versus being like, oh, you know, a lot of things have shifted in our industry. Things have changed. Guess what? I get to adapt to that, right? In fact, my smartest thing I could do as a business owner is adapting to that. A lot of times we think that like getting off the plan is like the worst thing we could do as a business owner. And it's not true at all. So the other piece I added to that was that idea of staying focused. So it doesn't mean that you don't have something that you're working toward. I am a really, really big fan of results-based planning. So what I mean by results-based planning is like, we're working toward X result, right? And we keep on that path until we get there. So it's like focused and results-oriented. Hey, Andrea. Hey, Maggie. Thank you guys for joining me. If you're here, say hi. So if you're on that path, you're super focused on that result. And you're going to do that thing until you get that result. And then you make a new plan versus being like, well, in Q1, I have to get that result. And then what happens if you don't get that result in Q1? Do you end up switching focus and doing the thing you're supposed to focus on in Q2? And really, that's like not necessarily the right move for your business. It's just a plan you made. Like, we give the plan so much power, if that makes sense, right? Hey, Andrea. And so what happens is instead of us continuing to make our business a well-oiled machine, which is what results-based planning helps you do, you're following an arbitrary plan, probably not based on a lot of data, in the sense that like you're not like, well, I know this launch works and it works best in this season, and normally we get this many people, and normally we, you know, launch in this way and it looks like X amount of dollars and X amount of results. When you're at that point in your business, I am all for planning out your quarters a little bit more specifically. I have plenty of clients that I do that with and that we already have 2019 planned out for. But what I'm saying is that when you're not at that point where you have a ton of data to drive your planning, results-based planning is so much better for you. So let me give you an example because it might be hard to conceptualize what I'm saying. So results-based planning would be something like, I want to fill my one-on-one. Okay, that's the goal. I want to fill my one-on-one. So guess what? I am going to make that the goal. That's the thing. And there's no timeline. It's like, I do as much as I can to fill my one-on-one until it's full. After that, my next goal is to launch my group course. I do as much as I need to do to launch that until it's launched. And then, right? Versus like in Q1, I fill one-on-one, and in Q2, I launch my group course. Do you know that you're going to fill one-on-one in Q1? What if you fill it in January? What if you don't fill it at all? This is where things get sticky because you have nothing to base that on. It's just a thought. It would be great if I filled it in Q1. Does this make sense to everybody? If you're picking up what I'm putting down, please let me know, because I think this is a little bit hard to explain sometimes. But it's this idea that I do the thing that gets me to the next thing, and the results are the goal, or the results are what the plan is based on, not some like arbitrary date or goal, right? So if fill my one-on-one with 8 clients or 12 clients or whatever it is for you is the thing, then you're like, I'm going to do that until I do it. And that's how you create a well-oiled machine of a business, because you stuck with it, which is what I said at the beginning, adaptability with focus, because you stuck with it until you got the result, but you were adaptable in the sense that Maybe it happened in a month. Maybe it happened in 6 months, whatever. But you stuck on the path and you let yourself be adaptable versus changing based on a plan versus changing based on quarters versus changing going, well, I said that in Q1 I would fill one-on-one, but I only got half full, so now I got to change the plan. No. You're half full, which means you obviously know what you're doing to get it. Also means you have room for improvement because it took you all of Q1. That's okay. This is how we create successful businesses, right? Again, big businesses can't plan based on results like that because that is not the ship they're driving, right? They're literally driving the Titanic and they can't turn that fast. We are so lucky that we have this adaptability and can move and swerve and go, okay, yep, gonna keep going, gonna actually sell the course 2 months sooner than I thought because I got the results, right? Like this is adaptability with focus, and it is the thing that makes you successful at the beginning. It is always the thing. The plan or, the quarters or the timelines are not ever what does it. Lisa says, I totally get this as I had to stop planning because it became something I had just plucked out of thin air. Starting to focus on the tangible things that move the needle has been so much better for me. I can so relate. Totally based on something you plucked out of thin air. I love that you said that, and thank you for admitting that because we've all done that, right? Like quarters are plucked out of thin air. Do you know what I mean? It's just something we all agreed to. Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 because of taxes, right? So it's not like that's how business results happen. You pick a result in Q1 and then you do it. It's sort of like that. Now, again, as your business grows, I think there is much more room for planning because it's data-driven planning, right? We can reliably know that a launch gets you this or more, or you know what I mean? Like your people respond at this time of year the best, that kind of stuff. But until you have all that data, please, please, please do not plan in that way because you are not using your biggest asset, which is your adaptability, right? So a lot of my clients will come to me and they're like, hey, we have 6 months together. What does that look like? What are all the goal points? And I'm like, well, what's your goal right now? We do that until it works perfectly. And then we move on, right? And so obviously that's a super simplified way of saying it. And I'm not trying to make it seem like we don't dive deeper. But if we got so rigid with that plan and that goal setting based on, timelines and deadlines, one, it puts an absolute fuck ton of pressure on you, like to do something that we're not even sure is realistic in the first place. Like, is it realistic for you to fill your one-on-one in Q1? I don't know. What's your audience size? How much are you marketing? What's your price point? What do you want to sell? All that kind of stuff, right? So putting that timeline on there is so pressure filled. And it's, again, not based on anything real. Does that make sense? Like Lisa said, it's like plucked out of thin air. No, that's not what we want at all, right? We want to be able to go, this is the most important thing to me in my business, right? So for me, when I started my business, I was like super one-on-one focused. Well, I still am super one-on-one focused, but that was like my thing at the time, right? And what happened was I worked my business to make it a well-oiled machine. So I got so locked in on like, I'm going to fill my one-on-one. I'm going to fill my one-on-one. And I did it so fast because I was so focused and because I was paying attention and being adaptable along the way. And then I ended up launching a course much faster than I had anticipated I would do, right? So I think I opened my business in July, launched my first course in October. I wouldn't have planned that though. Do you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have been like, I think it was end of July, right? So August, September, we launched in October. I wouldn't have been like 2 months in, I'll launch my course after my one-on-ones. Like I couldn't have planned that. But being able to adapt and be like, well, this happened faster than I thought, so I need to respond and do this, is what kept my sales really steady and kept my business flowing. Or being like, well, this happened really fast, and so now I wait to do this until January because that's what I decided. No. You being adaptable is the absolute number one thing, but focused. And that's what this provides when you do that result-based planning, is you're super focused. You know exactly what your goal is. So if your goal is to fill your one-on-one, you can run all decisions through that filter, right? Does this action help me fill my one-on-one? Does this action help me fill my one-on-one? Does this action help me fill my one-on-one? Because that's my result right now. And I don't get to do anything else in my business until I have created that result, right? If you can lean into that and let that be exciting, you're going to grow so much faster than you think. If you keep trying to put these arbitrary deadlines and timelines and goals on yourself, again, not based on any data, you're going to feel pressure and frustrated all the time. Does that make sense? For everybody, I would love to know what your kind of goal setting thought process is. I don't know if I want to say thought process, but like kind of how you think about goals in this way. Have you done this in your business, or you've done like a lot of goal setting that didn't really serve you? I want to give you guys an example because I really love this one. But when we're talking about big businesses have to operate like this because them having to make a change is like turning the Titanic. So I really love Anthropologie. And they have really struggled for the past couple of years with their women's clothing. So they do really well in like accessories and houseware. And their women's clothing has really struggled for their company. So they have spent, and this is like something I cannot like underscore enough, this big brand, this big company that has lots of brand loyalty has spent a couple of years trying to correct this issue of people buy a bunch of crap from us, but they're not buying women's clothing as much. Like, how crazy is that to think about? I think that we so often, think that if you have the plan, if you're running a successful business, it's not that hard. Wrong. They would kill for the adaptability that we have, because the changes that they're trying to make and then test and then tweak, it takes an eternity to make those changes. It takes an eternity to test and tweak them. Hey, Rita, thank you for joining me. So I want you to think about that. Think about Anthropologie. Keep that in mind. Like, if I notice that one of my programs isn't selling, guess what? It's not going to take me 2 years to fix it. It's going to take me, as much time as I need, but it might take 2 weeks, right? Maggie says all the yeses to results-based planning. I don't even know if that's a thing. I literally made that up today. I'm going to have to Google if that's a thing. It's just like what I call it with my clients and what we do, but I never really gave it a name. And then here it was. Maggie, you're good at naming things. Maybe we need to give it another name. But this is the point, right? So if you're trying to run the Anthropologie model, i.e. the big business model, we plan 18 months in advance, guess what? You're going to have the same problem they're having, which is that it takes 2 years to correct a problem. If you realize that your absolute biggest and best asset is your adaptability and that you can change fast and frequently when you need to, that's your win. So for example, if your goal is, I'm going to film my one-on-one, and you're noticing like, my live streams are, getting a lot of views, but they're not getting a lot of engagement. Or, my live streams are getting a lot of engagement, but not from enough people. You can tweak that so fast, right? Because you know what your result is that you're looking for. You know that everything needs to be driven to that. You know what you're doing. And you can adapt very quickly. Like, I'm noticing this, how do I adapt to this? I'm noticing this, how do I adapt to this? But my focus is singular still. It's still on getting that one result that we're planning for, right? So if you can stay focused like that, but with structure, like obviously there's structure of like this result, then this result, then this result, but not follow a rigid plan because it's the right way to do it or because that's what successful businesses do, you are going to see so much success in your business. The other thing I want to say about that is, like, we are not franchising businesses, right? We are all creating our own unique businesses. So when I say franchising, I mean, we're not like plugging and playing. Like, don't get me wrong. I would love to open me a Chick-fil-A, but I'm not doing it. So I'm not running that plug and play model where like I have data, even if it's a brand new business that supports like, I do this in Q1, this in Q2, this in Q3. I'm running a business that nobody's ever run before. Do people have businesses like mine? Sure. Has anyone ever run a Lit Up Life? No, they have not. Right? So when I try to take these plans and this data from someone else, I am always, always, always doing myself a disservice, because ain't nobody running my business, nor have they ever, right? So we're not franchising. We're not building the model that someone else had with the same brand and the same customer loyalty and whatever. We absolutely have to take into account what's working for us, what results we want, how we test and tweak that and stay adaptable, and how we create it. So that's such an important thing to remember when you find yourself going down that path, is like, I'm not franchising a business, I'm building a new one, right? It's also why I really love frameworks versus like really set things. So like, and as an example, like I run my one-on-one with the framework of mindset, strategy, and execution. That is the framework around which we work. We're going to pay as much or as little attention to each of those three as we need to get you the result that you want, right? That looks like different percentages for different people. But the point is, it's so results based. It's like a results based framework, right? Meaning our focus is on using this framework to get you a result. Versus if it was like, in week 1, we talk about mindset. In week 2, we talk about strategy. In week 3, we talk about execution. Well, like maybe you execute like a boss and you don't need week 3, but you needed to spend all 3 of those weeks on mindset. That would be a problem, right? And it wouldn't get you the result and it would leave both of us frustrated. That's exactly how goal setting and planning in that way is. It's just like an arbitrary thing that has nothing to do with you and your business. We're just picking it and we're just trying to plug and play it versus being like, well, Maggie needs 3 weeks on this and Rita needs 2 weeks on this. And so we're going to do that because we want them to get the result. That's how I want you to think of your planning. I can be adaptable because I want to get the result. My goal is just to stay focused on that result, not to put arbitrary timelines on it and not to use someone else's plug and play plan or thing, right? Andrea says that makes an abundance of sense. We're not franchising a business, we're creating brand new ones. This is why so many people invest so much money on blueprints and strategies and end up spinning their wheels forever. 100%. I feel like I could go off on a tangent there, so I'll just do it for a minute and then I'll try to rein myself in. But most of the people that we all follow and love and look up to, they created their own system and strategy. Now they're teaching that system and strategy that worked for them to get them the big results. But if you really think about that on a deep level, it makes no sense. The only reason it worked is because it worked for them. It's not like, oh, I hacked it and this is exactly how it works. And so now everyone should copy me. What they're really saying is I figured out how to make it work for me. Does that make sense? Totally different. Follow my plan and my exact path versus like my win was figuring out how to make it work for like me, my personality, my business, my goals. It's totally different, right? The difference between franchising and starting your own business, totally different. Does that make sense? So most of the people that we're like looking up to or aspiring to, it works for them because they figured it out themselves because they created their own system. They're not like, oh, my business grew because I just copied someone else's 5-step plan. But then we're trying to copy their 5-step plan. Like it makes no sense, right? Andrea says, yes, there is one strategy that works for every business. Find what works for you, the end. I'm just going to turn off the live stream now because that's pretty much the point, right? But really, that's pretty much the point. And the point is stay adaptable to that. So maybe you take a little bit from me, maybe you take a little bit from someone else you love, maybe you take a little bit from someone else you love, and you stay adaptable and you make that fit you. And you keep it focused on this result you want, on result-based planning. Plan based on the result you want, take what you're resonating with, tweak it, and make it work for you. And that's how you're going to see the biggest results. The biggest mistake most people are making is trying to get so specific with their plan, i.e. basing it on quarters or timelines or deadlines or things like that. And it's completely arbitrary. It's not data-driven. It's not something that they really are using any true logic behind, truthfully. And then they're basing their entire business around this and feeling super stressed out and frustrated all the time. If you base your business on getting one result after the other and you do what you got to do until you get that result and you adapt along the way, you are going to have such an easier time. Now, here's the rub. Does it feel less certain? Totally. Why do we love plans? Because we freaking love the certainty, right? Feels so good to see 2019 laid out and feel that moment of certainty, right? Feels so freaking good. Except it doesn't actually do you any favors. And that certainty is so short-lived because as soon as you don't hit that first arbitrary goal or timeline, you're going to beat yourself up and you're going to feel completely lost again. And then you're going to try to recreate a plan. And it's just this never-ending cycle. So that's the thing. Why do you want the plan the most? Because you want that certainty. And so part of the work is getting clear that the certainty is in the result. The certainty isn't in the plan. The certainty is in, I'm going to work this until it works and I get the result I want. That is where you will find the most certainty in your business. You're not going to find it in, that year-long plan that falls apart after the first thing doesn't work out, right? So yes, find what works for you, period. Be adaptable, period. Right? And get comfortable with a little bit of uncertainty, but also realize that a lot of your certainty lies in your focus and your adaptability, not in like an arbitrary plan. All right. I hope that helps. I hope that gives you something to think about. If you have any questions on this, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Hope you all have a beautiful Thanksgiving. And also don't forget to join me. I have an announcement on Happy Thoughts tomorrow that I really want to share with you all. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh, I want to see what Andrea says. She says she's been in a corporate role for 15 years and it's so goal-based and time-limit driven, but it's a murderous cycle of not getting things done on time, managing crazy expectations, etc. Totally. And I also feel like you guys probably have to operate like that to a certain extent because of the size of the business and the corporation that you're working with. And even then it's miserable, right? And so I think that's such an important thing to remember is we don't have to do that shit to ourselves in our own business. Not only do we not have to, it actually doesn't serve us at all. So like freedom to not do that, right? Yeah. So why in the hell would I want my business to be that way? You just took the words out of my mouth, right? Permission to not do that because it's not even like fun or working all that well in the corporate world. Definitely don't translate it to your business then, right? Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Andrea, for using yourself as such a beautiful example. Hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving and I hope to see you tomorrow on Happy Thoughts. All right. Love you guys.